Hi everyone, today I'm going to paint a little black ant in watercolor and I'm going to use the Daniel Smith watercolors. It's a dot card or chart and is Anderson palette. The colors will be Lunar Black, Sepia, I'm going to use some French ochre and then some French ultramarine as well. I might adjust a few little colors while I'm painting, but I will keep you informed while painting. That's the little line drawing, and I also uploaded a line drawing for my patrons on Patreon. So if you're on Patreon, go and have a look and download the line drawing for you. I just closed the blind because it is quite sunny, and when it shines on the paper like that, it gives me a headache. So I'm just closing it a bit so it's not too bright, and I'm trying to adjust it a bit so it's not, because the wind is blowing the blind like that, and then it just um, gives it reflection on the paper, and I can't paint like that. I'll get a headache. Anyway, I'm going to use a plate where I'm going to mix my colors on, and then I have two clean glasses of water on the right hand side of me. The brushes, I will mention that while I paint, but you can use, for instance, a size 8. I do have two size 8s there because there are two different brands of watercolor brushes, and then a smaller one. I will use a brush with a very nice tip as well, just to use for the final little details, especially on the little legs of this ant. And I'm going to use more of a brown black on the back of the body and more of a blue black on the front of the body, like the head and the bottom of the body parts. And I always use a bit of French ultramarine at the top or on the rounded edges of my subjects. Whatever I paint, you can use purple as well, like a soft purple you can use. That just helps to create that effect of a rounded subject, like for instance an ant or a beetle or a butterfly. Oops, I bumped the camera. Anyway, I do have a problem with my new speaker that I bought, or my mic, and I think it's a little speaker. There seems to be a problem with that. I'm going to soften the lines of the line drawing on the paper, and this is the Fabriano cold press watercolor paper. It's a big sheet that I cut into, I would say, just smaller than an A4 size. And my line drawing will be much darker because I want my students to see that on Patreon, so it's a lot darker than what, for instance, if you paint for yourself, you can make it much lighter. So that is the sepia mix, that's the lunar black, quite a beautiful black. You can use Payne's Gray and you can use normal sepia. Alternatively, you can use a little drop of your Payne's Gray mixed with burnt sienna, that will also do. That is a quinacridone, I think it's quinacridone sienna, that color there. And then that's the French ochre that I am talking about that I used. And then I'm just mixing a few colors to see which one will go better with the back side of the ant, the back part of the ant. And I will mention all the colors while I'm painting. So I'm going to use my number 8 brush. I know it looks like a very small brush, but it is a number 8. And for those of you who want a full step-by-step tutorial with a voiceover, this will be uploaded on Patreon. My students receive the line drawing, a video with all of the supplies where I explain quite a lot of different colors they can use as well, and all of the brushes that I use. So I'll also give them a booklet with all of the line drawings and the colors that I use, everything relating to the painting. You can use that forever, that's yours. So everything will be ready for you to download on Patreon. So I started with the Lunar Black and then some of the sepia. So you can see on my plate next to me that is quite a mix of colors. This little brush is now a smaller brush, so I would say go for either one, sorry, or two, but this is a number 3. I've done quite a bit of voiceovers, so my voice is going away. I've already done the voiceovers for Patreon, which is quite a long process because there are quite a few parts to this painting. And what I do here is I take that brown black mix and I also add it on these little parts. So you'll see on the plate next to me, I will either have a little bit of French ultramarine mixed in there. I will have a mix of the more black on the one section, and then I will have a section where there's a little bit more of the sepia black. There are two different colors of black that I use on the plate there. So if you're not sure, always look on the left hand or the right hand side on the plate, depending on what side you use for hold your brush. Yours might be on your left hand side, mine's on my right hand side. And then I just drop in the brown black color on this side. On this section, I'm wetting this part, and you see I have quite a bit of water on there. It doesn't matter because it's quite a hot day today, so my paper dries very quickly and it will not create puddles. So I immediately start moving the pigment around on that section. I leave the little leg open, obviously, because I don't want to paint over that now, and I will explain to you later why I do that, because that's going to be totally separate from the body. So I'm going to leave a few highlights around that leg section so that you can see the leg very clearly because it's part of the body. And you will also hear my daughters outside because we are potty training our new puppy, and every time he knows what he's doing, he gets a compliment. But it's very busy because they keep us busy. We now have two puppies. One is 5 months old, or just about 5 months old, and the other one is now 10 weeks. I will show you. Sorry, 10 weeks. No. How much? Yes, 10 weeks. 10 weeks. This is from sleep deprivation. I honestly don't sleep much, but she's very good other than that. I will show you all pictures very soon. And so this is a bit more of a black mix. You can see the black is, there's not too much brown mixed onto that section. And there's not too much water on my brush all the time. So if I do move my hand to the left hand side and you can't see it on that palette there, it's because I'm dipping my brush in water and then I'm just smoothing it out and softening all of those lines. Unfortunately, I'm zooming in and I can't show you the glasses of water that I have on the side there. I'm very close to the paper. So this is the pure black mix that I have now, and I'm just going to drop it in there and move it up, and then I soften my brush. I just go around that little edge there like that, and then lift out the excess pigment with my brush. You'll see how I push my brush down there on the paper. That is just how I lift up some of the excess pigment, and I just move it around softly. On this side too, I want that little section to be light for now. I'll wait for it to dry completely, and if I want to darken it later, I will just drop in some more pigment. Now I'm going to go to this section here, and then I'm just softening that part, smoothing it out with my brush like that. And then there's another little section, very carefully just going in there with a different black, just so that it's different, gives it a bit more of an interest and make it look more rounded like that. Aren't they just cute little animals? Or not animals, they're insects. I'm thinking of my dogs, but these are little cute insects. I know not everyone wants them in their sugar pot, but I don't mind. They're not in my sugar pot, but they are in my garden. I normally use a jam jar with a lid for my sugar pot because we live by the ocean and it gets wet anyway. So my sugar pot is always closed, and I don't use a lot of sugar anyway. So I don't have a problem with ants. I know when we used to live in a different area, we used to have little ants in our sugar pot all the time, but we don't have a problem anymore. So they're not a problem for me. So this is the way I painted the legs, and I just go over it and darken it at a later stage again once it's completely dry. We're going to start with the body section now. So I want to leave some of the highlighted sections as light as possible on this little ant. So you'll see the top part of the body. There's not color yet because that's where I'm going to drop in the French ultramarine color. It always helps to create that rounded effect. I always use that for that color, or a very watery mix of the black that will also help. But then I won't go too dark on that top part of the body. That will create that rounded effect that I want on the body. So this is more the brown black mix. So this is sepia mixed with the lunar black, very, very watery. And you'll see I rinse my brush and then I go over this section, and there's a drop of the French ultramarine that I just dropped in there right now, because I'm going to take it over that section there. Very watery. You'll see that it's so light. I'm also taking it over the top part of the head there. It's very watery, and I don't mind that going right down to the bottom, because the head part's going to have a lot more blue in, so it's going to be more cool than the back of the body. I'm going to use a cooler black for the front of the body. I've painted in all of these little sections. I'm also going to do the bottom part, and you will notice that I use different shades of this black mix. So this one is going to be more black because it's closer to me, and then the one further away is going to be a lot lighter. So I adjust the color slightly. This will also help to give it a bit more interest. And I like the way it turned out so far, and I also like the texture of the paper, although very different to when I paint my flowers. I do like the way it gives it a little bit more texture on this very textured cold press Fabriano paper. And I painted the eye in already, so if you want to see all of these steps you can follow along. I keep my classes very reasonable for what I give my students, so go and have a look on Patreon. I will link it down below, and it is fun. We have quite a bit of different paintings that we painted already of insects. We painted a butterfly, we painted a beetle, and we painted a wildflower with a green beetle as well, which is also quite a fun study or tutorial. So go and have a look and join us over there. And I'm just darkening some of the sections. So I always make sure that I go back and I move the pigment around. What I did now is I wet the top part of the head there, and then I just take my tip of my brush and I drop in some of the excess pigment that I have on my brush to create those little soft markings. So this will help all of the pigment just to flow in the wet parts of my paper. So it's not too wet. I don't want it everywhere. I don't want it to flood the parts. I don't want the pigment to flood the sections where I painted the eye now, so I didn't wet that. So only wet the part where I wanted to drop in that color. Now I'm going to paint the little sections on the back of the body, and I want to keep it very light. And then I just soften it so there's not a hard line. And you'll see that I keep some of the sections still very light. I don't want too much pigment on there. Just pick some more up and I drop on the sides there. And I've enlarged the picture quite a lot on the paper. They are so minute. I don't think I'll be able to paint a tiny little ant as they are, because they're so small. So just soften this all the time. And with watercolors, remember watercolors, especially if you're a beginner, if you're already painting in watercolors, you know that watercolors dry much lighter. So if I come back later and I notice some of the sections need maybe a little bit more color, I will just use exactly what I have on my palette and just go over those parts again that I want to darken. I wet these little sections and then I pick up some of the pigment on my plate, and I'm just dropping it in with the tip of my brush just to darken those sections. This is also a very fun part for me where you start adding in all of the detail. You'll also notice that my plate and my palette is very dry. I don't have too much water on my brush, so I just use the tip of my brush with a drop of water to darken all of these little sections. This will help to create that realistic look that I want on the face and the eye. A bit more of a rounded shape instead of it having a flat look on the paper. Just darkening certain sections. Use a brush with a nice tip. I'm very careful here so I don't paint into those little light sections right around the eye, because I do not want that to be dark. On this part, I used a big brush. I wet the section underneath the ant and I'm just dropping in some of the pigment. I'm going to pick up clean water and I just want to create blooms. So that will soften all those dark little bits that I just painted right now. And I just dip my brush on these sections that I wet. I didn't wet the whole section. I just want the one part to be dark for the shadow, and then I'm also softening this little section here. Again, some more clean water, and it will just help to create a little bit more texture. And I use my tissue paper just to dab up the excess color. And finally, we are done. You can see the texture on the cold press watercolor paper. And here is the little ant that I painted, part of the garden collection on my Patreon. Also, go and have a look at the wildflower and beetle that I painted. It's a green beetle. It was also a fun tutorial on Patreon. And then the painted lady butterfly that I painted on Patreon as well. Quite a few fun insect paintings that we've done recently. This will be a future tutorial as well, and I've used some glitter just to give it a bit more of an interest. And I'm also going to show you a bird that I painted with one of my brushes, where I used that to create these feathery bits on the bird. So go and have a look on YouTube, there are more videos.